Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Writing Cabin with Tara Benner. I'm author Tara Benner, and this is my cabin. We all need to escape into story from time to time. So come on in, sit down by the fire, pour yourself a nice hot cup of cocoa, and let's talk books. Now, before we get started today, I want to take a quick moment to thank my wonderful patrons. Patrons, your support not only funds the creation of new stories, but it tells me that you enjoy my books so much that you want to support them and me directly. If you're not familiar with Patreon, Patreon is a platform that allows readers to support authors directly with a small monthly pledge. If you would like to join our Patreon family, you can do so over at patreon.com/Tara Benner Labs. I create a brand new piece of writing every single month, and you can gain access to that whole library of Patreon exclusive stories for just $2. Or if you bump your pledge up to $3 a month, you will also receive each new release as an ebook before it's released anywhere else. Again, that's patreon.com/Tara Benner Labs. This week's featured book is The Witch's Fortune. That is Fiona's prequel novella. It's brand new. It's not officially been released anywhere. In the small town of Mountain Shadow, Fiona and Eleanor have always been the Weird Grimes sisters. Fiona never had any intention of moving back home, but when her parents are killed in a fire, she's drawn back to the rambling old house that's been in her family for generations. There she finds an unwelcome guest, the spirit of a 19th century gold prospector who knew her great-great-grandmother Loretta. He's there for one reason, and one reason alone, to keep Fiona from leaving Mountain Shadow. When Fiona enlists the help of her psychic friend Jinx, she learns more than she bargained for. With the draw of a card, she finds herself questioning not just her own life's purpose, but the greater destiny of her entire family. If you are listening to the podcast on Friday when it comes out, there are only a couple days left in the VIP launch. And right now, for a limited time, you can get The Witch's Fortune for free when you purchase Warrior Witch in the digital bundle on my website. So you go and buy the 6th and final book in the main series, and you'll get the prequel novella included for free. Just go to tarabenner.com/shop. That's Tara with an H. All right. It's time for my little life update that I do every week. And this past weekend, we took a little field trip to Guffey, Colorado. Neither me nor my husband ever spent any time in Guffey, Colorado. And we really were hardly even aware that it existed, except that my husband, who's been working in Kansas City, we had some fires that forced one of the roads to be closed for a little while, and he was having to go to work along this different route that took him through Guffey, Colorado. And so he's like, oh, we have to go to Guffey. And so I don't remember what day. I guess it was Friday before Memorial Day weekend, because on Memorial Day weekend, Colorado, everywhere is just crazy. And so because we live in Colorado, we do all our getting out and about before the holiday weekend or a different weekend, and then we get groceries and hunker down like it's the apocalypse on Memorial Day weekend. And so the last time we were getting out was Friday morning, and we got out pretty early, and we went down to Guffey to get some breakfast and do some hiking. And oh my God, Guffey is the weirdest little town. It's really, there's not a lot there. There is the Sweetwater Saloon, I think it's called, which is kind of like a bar, maybe a bar and grill. And there's this place called the Bakery, and they serve food as well. Really yummy breakfast, and the woman who runs it, she makes all the bread every day that they serve there. They have all kinds of great stuff. And there's this weird antique store with all this like junk out on the corner, like these like animal skeletons that the guy has rigged to look like a skeleton commanding like a coach with this skeleton creature, like rearing up. And it's so weird and cool. And we went there, we had a little breakfast, we made some friends at the bakery there. And then we went on a little hike because there's this place nearby called Guffey Gorge. And I didn't realize it. I forget what they call it now. So it's this place that's very well known locally. Like all the young people go there. It's kind of like a hangout spot, maybe like a lover's lane kind of destination also. But like you hike down into the gorge and it's absolutely beautiful. It looks like Middle Earth. There's all these kind of rocky cliffs and there's this beautiful waterway that goes through there. And it's just breathtaking. And then you hike down this really steep incline further into the gorge, and there's this waterfall that goes into this really beautiful clear pool of water. And we got there and everyone's just kind of lounging around, in their swimsuits and everything. And we kept going. Everyone kind of stops at this waterfall zone, but we kept hiking. And we found this really tucked away, beautiful spot that we had all to ourselves. And my 9-month-old got to dip his toes in the water for the first time. But as we're coming back, I look up on this cliff and I see this kid climbing up there. And I'm like, what is he doing? And my husband says, he's going to jump. And I was like, well, if we're just going to stand here and watch him jump, we're going to watch this guy die, because this cliff juts out and it's a really far drop down to the water. I'm like, that water is not deep enough for diving. And there's one tiny little sign that's like, no jumping or diving is recommended on pain of death. Like, because these mountain waterways, it's not like the Midwest where it's like a rushing river that's always deep enough. These are waterways, in the Southwest, a lot of times waterways dry up or they get really, really low due to drought. Fortunately, we had just had all this snow and all this rain, snow melt come down. And so it was pretty full, but I was still like, ooh, I don't think he's gonna live. But we watched this kid jump and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe he just did that. But then more people started making this climb, and it's not really the jump so much that's so scary, but it's watching these kids climb down to where they have a clear path to the water, because the cliff, juts out and you couldn't just jump from the very top. You have to climb down these rocks. And it's very steep, and I'm kind of a daredevil at times, but it's honestly not something that I would attempt. I don't think. I really wanted to watching them, but I'm like, ugh, I have a kid now. Like, I don't want him to be like, oh yeah, my mom died when I was a baby because she was cliff diving. My last words would be, watch this. And I was just watching these kids do it, and a lot of them got to the top and chickened out and wouldn't do it, but some of them did, and I was like, I have to put this in a book. This is just amazing to watch. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that little excursion. And we hunkered down for the rest of the weekend because it just gets crazy out here. I got out once to go to my little local coffee shop and write, and it was just bumper to bumper traffic on the highway. There were bikers on the highway. I'm like cyclists, not like motorcyclists, but bicyclists. And so it gets pretty crazy, but we had a nice quiet weekend at home, just the family. So that's about it for my life update. Now it's time for my little writing update. And I am still gearing up for the official launch of Warrior Witch on June 6th, which will be Monday if you're listening to the podcast or if you're watching on YouTube. And to be perfectly honest, I am exhausted from launching this book. I don't usually do a big launch, and that's intentional, just because I write pretty quickly, I put out books pretty quickly, and I am usually just so anxious to get to my readers. I kind of throw it up on Amazon. I'm like, oh, here you go. But because it was the sixth and final book, I really wanted to make a splash, and so I did kind of this tiered launch, and I was really encouraged by how many people participated in the VIP launch and bought the book directly from me. That was my first time doing that. I've also had some good pre-orders. And then Sunday, this coming Sunday, in preparation for the official launch, I'm going to be doing a live giveaway from my Facebook page. I've never done a Facebook Live before. I'm kind of nervous about it. But to be honest, I'm just ready for this launch to be done with so I can fully focus on my newest project. I have been writing the high fantasy novel of my heart. I can't remember, I'm probably about 25,000, maybe 30,000 words into it at this point. And I've really been enjoying it. It's different than what I've written in the past. And it's truly what my muse wanted to write. If you listened to the show last week or watched on YouTube, you know that I was kind of angsting about this because I felt that I should be writing the spinoff to Mountain Shadow, but I'm just not ready to do that. And this other book has been calling me. And so that's what I'm letting myself work on. And even though that's been going really well, I did have a pretty low moment yesterday. Not really related to the new project, more kind of, I think making that decision, it was more of an artistic decision and less of a business decision. And so I find myself kind of putting a little bit more pressure on myself to get the rest of my ducks in a row. And especially with the launch coming up, I've been kind of stressing a little bit because just a couple months ago, I pulled the last of my series out of Kindle Unlimited. And if you're not familiar with KU, Kindle Unlimited, it's basically the Netflix for books. So readers pay, I think it's $9.99 a month, and they get to read any book that's in Kindle Unlimited for that price. And as an author, you get paid for the amount of pages read. The downside to being in Kindle Unlimited is I cannot sell the books anywhere else. I can't sell them on Apple or Barnes & Noble or Google. I cannot even sell them from my own website, which to me is just too restrictive. And so I kind of went a little crazy over the spring and I pulled all my stuff out because all my friends were doing it. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that too. And to be honest, I have taken a huge hit from pulling my books out of Kindle Unlimited. I am slowly building up a readership on the other retailers. And like I said, I have a lot of readers who are willing to buy directly from me, which is fantastic because I get to keep a huge portion, like 97% of the profits, as opposed to 70% of the profits. But a lot of readers now are taking advantage of Kindle Unlimited. And so I have seen my day-to-day income just drop dramatically. And it's fine, but when I'm not excelling at something, it takes a really big toll on me mentally because I'm an achiever. I was a straight A student. I like to do well. And, with having a young son, it's my time is really limited. And so I can't be doing all the things that my ambitious side really wants to be doing. And so I was having kind of just a rough night and I was stressing about the series and if it was going to do as well if the new release was going to do as well because I'm not in Kindle Unlimited anymore. And I kind of, between last night and waking up this morning in a much better place, I've come to the realization that writing is 98% a mental game. I have been at this since 2013, and I think anybody who's been authoring for 5+ years, 10+ years will tell you that excelling as an author in the long term, it's not really necessarily a matter of writing skill. It's not necessarily about your ability to market those books. It is 98% your ability to manage your emotions and your own mental state throughout the ups and downs of author life, essentially, because there will be ups and downs. It is not just this exponential line up toward, being a bazillionaire. It's like watching the stock market. Like, truly, it's publishing and the book business. It is its own version of the S&P 500. And, you see these spikes and you see these kind of runs, and then you see these really low troughs. And an author friend of mine, we talk every week. And yesterday we were talking really nostalgically about 2016 of all years, which is a year that will live in infamy for like a lot of people probably. But I look back on it as kind of the heyday of indie publishing. And a lot of people who've been in it longer than I have would say the heyday was 2011, 2012. They call it the Kindle Gold Rush. But for me, it was 2015 and 2016 when I was talking to my accountant, and I was like, what do I do about this money I'm making? Because I'm going to owe a lot of money in taxes. And, we had a little boom in 2020 with the pandemic because a lot of people were stuck at home and they were reading. But most years, it's honestly kind of a slog, and things are always changing and you have to change with them. And sometimes you don't pivot very well, you don't adapt very well. And it's all about just keeping yourself going and staying positive and upbeat through the process. And most days I wake up and I'm really motivated and excited and I feel like the world is my oyster. But then at night, I'm very much a morning person. And by the time it's like 8 o'clock at night, I'm kind of at my like most pessimistic. And last night was one of those nights. And I did not feel like I was succeeding, and nor did I feel like I was even on the path to being able to succeed because, like I said, my time is limited right now. I've just made this huge change to my business model, and it's pretty scary because this is something I want to do for my entire life. And I think to myself, if I cannot kind of get out of this trough, then I don't know that I'm going to be able to make a living like this in the long term. And I said to myself, if I'm not succeeding, am I failing? And I was like, well, no, I'm continuing to put out books. I'm continuing to make money. And I thought to myself, well, what would it take for me to feel like I'm failing at this? Because I couldn't ask the question, what would it take to make me feel like a success? Because I just felt like I was too far away from that. So I flipped it and I said, what would it take for me to feel like I had failed? Would it be, I can't make money at this anymore, I have to go back to my day job? Like, well, on the off chance that they'd even want me back, because I've been self-employed since 2015, I kind of feel like I'm unemployable at this point. I still wouldn't really feel like a failure. I feel a little bit like a failure because I'd be kind of going back with my tail between my legs, but I would continue to write and put out books, and my only goal would be getting free of that day job again. And, I did it once before. I'm a lot smarter now. I probably feel like I could do it again, but that's not what it would take. And the answer that I came up with was that I would feel that I had failed if I just stopped writing and stopped publishing. And I can't stop writing. I've always been a writer, even before I was finishing books and publishing books. I've always been a writer since I was 8 or 9 years old. And so in that respect, it's kind of liberating because it's like, well, it doesn't matter how I do things with my business. I can't fail. Even on the bad days. If I wrote today, like, I can't have failed. So if you are someone who is a writer or wants to be a writer, just keep that in mind. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. I think everybody at times feels like the sky is falling and they're never gonna be able to get back to where they were or get to the level that they want. But that it's all about just staying in the game and trying to stay positive. So I hope that helps if anybody out there is a writer or an aspiring writer. That's it for that update. Ooh, except I don't know if you can see on the YouTube, but I am wearing the Grimes Family Apothecary shirt, and the shirts and all that stuff are available on my website. That is live, so check that out in my bookshop. It's time for What Am I Reading This Week, and I am still making my way through Fireheart by Emma Hamm, and I am still listening to A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. It's kind of a long one. They're all kind of long. But I actually started at night listening to The Hobbit as my nighttime audiobook, because anything that's too like edge of your seat, it's not really good to help me like fall asleep. And I realize I'm writing high fantasy, but the Lord of the Rings, that's like, the most famous fantasy series ever. And I have never read all of them. I realized I hadn't read The Hobbit since 7th grade. And I was like, I need to like refresh on this. And so I'm listening to The Hobbit. That's like a good nighttime audiobook. And yeah, I'll keep you posted. It's almost time to go, but before we do, let's check the mailbox. And I don't often do this, but I wanted to read a little review that I stumbled upon because I was just checking something on the Witches of Mountain Shadow series page on Amazon for the launch. And this review slapped me in the face because I really try not to read reviews. I'll read a few, early reviews that come in on things just to make sure nothing has gone horribly awry. But for my own mental sanity, I don't really read reviews that aren't 5 stars because I'm a narcissist. But this one actually was a 5-star review, and it's from Colorado Patty Cake. And I wanted to read it because this really helped pull me out of like my really dark place last night. So Colorado Patty Cake writes about Ether Witch, actually the whole series. She writes, I loved this book. Geographically, it's a little Colorado Springs, my hometown, a little old Colorado City, and a lot of Manitou Springs, called Mountain Shadow. This book has great characters and demonstrates friendships, family dynamics, entrepreneurship, and a budding romance. It was so fun to read, and I was surprised to learn this is the author's first supernatural/paranormal book. I found this in a list of books set in Colorado Springs, and I'm so glad I read it. You will be glad too. So if you're listening, Colorado Patty Cake, thank you for that. It just goes to show, if you enjoyed a book, please leave a review because you never know when it's going to help an author keep going in the slog that is author life. If you have any burning questions or comments that you would like for me to read on the show, you can send them to tarabenner@gmail.com, or you can post them on any of my social media channels. I am at author Tara Benner on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and don't forget to RSVP to the Facebook giveaway on Sunday. I will put a link to that down in the show notes. You might win a signed paperback or some cool merch. But that's all I have for you this week. Feel free to stay in my cabin for as long as you like. We can drink some hot cocoa. You can crack open a good book, hopefully one of mine, and have a wonderful weekend.